Hello, my name is Tony Spruce, and that's what we're gonna build today. But let's leave it up to past me to do the work. Thank you, future me. But before we can start building, we do have to do quite a little bit of clearing out, and with that we also come to the first topic I want to discuss. What makes for the perfect terrain for building? I remember the years where I watched commonly those seed showcases where someone found an awesome seed and, you know, they were trying to sell it to you. And something I frequently heard back then is that what you want to have in your seed is a plains area without trees with open and flat terrain. Because it's great for building, right? Well, it depends. Honestly, I kinda disagree with that full-heartedly. Of course, there are some builds that really lean for a flat terrain. When we think of maybe industrial plants, stuff like that, or modern buildings. Because of course, a flat terrain is kind of a blank canvas where you can paint on whatever you want. But the issue is that terrain building takes a lot of time in survival. And a lot of builds, especially more rustic ones, those that get most commonly built in Minecraft, or, well, I'm building myself, they lean themselves for some dramatic background, for some terrain around them. And of course you can just build that up from scratch if you have a flat seed or a flat terrain. But not only is proper terraforming, or rather building up the terrain yourself, out of the league for most builders, that is quite difficult actually. And what's even more so, for most people out of question simply because they don't have that much time. You know, they cannot just build a mountain, like you see it on Hermitcraft. That you can do if that's your full-time job. So for many builds, it's actually better to search for a seed that has the right kind of terrain for your needs. Which is also why I've changed my habits of how I start new worlds. When I started playing, or for many years, I was always I always just got a random seed. Because I love the surprise. And as it turns out, you can do something with every Minecraft seed. You will always find special things that make that seed so unique. However, that it was in my pre-YouTube time. Now when I start a new YouTube series, and with that a new world, I generally already have an idea. I think we're clean. Are we? Yes. Or what I want to do. For example, for this world, it was, before I even started it, clear that I wanted to have an island, so we have that a little bit of a tropical area, but generally just a very sea-themed world. So I needed an island. So I searched on, what is it, Mine Atlas these days, for fitting seeds, picked out 3 of them and then loaded them up in creative and actually looked around a little bit. So I did not go in here blind. I of course try to avoid looking at structures and things like that. Okay, step 2, terraforming, or actually, yeah, what I actually want to do, because, you know, this is spruce forest. The green color, the grass color, is not that suitable for a jungle, so we're gonna turn all that into moss. But back to seeds. I tried to avoid to spoiler myself in that I already knew where certain structures were, things like that, because that's not fun. I want to find things on myself on my own. But it was important that we had that big spruce island. And actually that was everything that was important. Everything around that I did not care. And that was the best island I could find, for my purpose anyway. Ideally, of course, you would have someone else pick out the seed for you and you just give them some instructions. Maybe I can do that in the future. So it's still a surprise, while still getting the things I desperately want. Now let's get out our moss box. Do I actually... I'm not sure if that's enough, but we will see. Alright, I think sand cannot be converted, so we have to be careful about that. That's alright. Okay, that was not the intent. Yeah, life is tricky, isn't it? Yeah, that we have to remove manually, but that's fine. And the ideal thing when it comes to terraforming is, as I said, find something that suits your need in the first place, and then just adapt it. Like we're changing the surface into moss. It will also change the shape a little bit. But at the same time also don't get too picky, because my experience, especially from my early days where I just played with random seeds, is that having a given terrain makes you very creative. Because more often than not, what is happening? What am I doing? More often than not, you will find inspiring structures in the terrain that give you ideas that you haven't even thought about before. So a lot of the things on this island also, on this world, even though I picked that seed specifically, are still kinda governed by what was already there. So we have this little river between those islands where we can park our big clipper. We have the main island with a beach up front and more stony and dirty terrain back there, as well as this little very sandy island to the side, which of course lends itself perfectly for a more tropical piratey vibe. It not only lends this very well to build awesome immersive worlds while still being fairly time efficient, the great thing is also that while modifying the terrain and working with what's already there, you're actually giving your world a bit more story than if you just literally start in a flat world and build up. And the beautiful thing about Minecraft is that we got increasingly more tools, you know, like that moss conversion. I'm pretty sure many Let's Players would have dreamed about that many years ago. That you can just change the grass color that quickly. I mean, it's not really changing the grass color, but you know what I mean. It's pretty much the same effect. Gosh, all these bushes. No one needs so many bushes. And another problem with searching for flat worlds or fairly flat plains is, of course, plains are always plains. They will always have the same grass color. Doesn't matter if it's suitable for your build or not. Obviously, I already had the problem here that it is a spruce forest which does not fit a jungly vibe, but you know, you will not find a jungle next to a spruce forest like that. That's just not gonna happen, so sometimes you just have to adapt things, but especially for bigger builds, for bigger bases, it is vital that I had that spruce forest already here, so I have the right mood that I wanted for that island to have. Because I can replace it with moss, but I cannot change the grass color. That's just something that's not possible in survival. Okay, we maybe can leave a little bit of grass towards the borders. Maybe. And should we get... I think we should not get rid of the sand completely, but rather just cut it back a little bit. Like that. Maybe even put a little bit of grass back as... You know, here it is on the... What even is the Technilia beach, I think. That looks better than, you know, the sprucey grass here. That instance. But in any case, having a suitable terrain color is very important, as that ultimately plays into your color palette of the world and really, not necessarily dictates, but gives you a frame of what build colors you should use. You know, the color choice in a jungle is a very different one than in a taiga. Just because the overall surroundings are very differently saturated. So that is something very important to keep in mind. It might be even a fun idea to challenge yourself to build in a biome you have never built before, with the intent of using different building blocks you just previously couldn't really incorporate into your builds, because the terrain just did not fit them. I don't know. I think a jungle would lend itself more to vibrant, bright colors than a taiga does. You know, with all my builds I have incorporated some bright turquoise as well as yellow, but mostly the buildings are very, you know, white, black, brown, very uncolorful. Because too much color, I think, in that biome would just... it just wouldn't look good. But I'm pretty sure with a jungle, you have more liberties in that regard. Way more liberties. Okay, and now I don't have enough moss. How did that happen? Well, let's have a look in the storage room. I'm not even attempting the parkour because I'm not going to embarrass myself. At least not that early in the video. Do I really have to farm that stuff now? Maybe we just don't. Maybe we just try to work with what we have. Yeah. We work with what we have, maybe we can fill in more later. Because honestly, that looks pretty good. Maybe we can actually flatten that out a little bit. And then that problem solves itself. And mood is really important for any Minecraft build. That is also, by the way, why I'm even bothering with the jungle behind here. Because the spruce forest just did not work with the pirate theme. And that was a pretty spontaneous idea. Because even though I had the idea of that pirate island for a long time, the jungle idea, or the jungle part of it, that is a pretty new one. As it just is necessary. And we might also need more leaves around here, I'm just realizing. To bring the jungle into the build. And another very important thing with building in Minecraft is always to get beyond your comfort zone. That is something I'm also doing with this build. Do we just have regular dirt, grass blocks? How do I not have anything with me? Let's just take the grass blocks, because then we can convert them into moss. Because I will be building many trees here, and I'm not a good or experienced tree builder. So that's fun. I'm slightly scared, but I can just hope for the best. Let's all collectively hope for the best. But only that way you'll learn new skills. Because I used to suck at building in Minecraft in general, and I don't think I do anymore. So let's maybe make the same happen for trees. Okay, how far? Why is there a singular sand block? How far for the grass and moss to spread? At least we get a good amount of sand this way, which is always handy. Would never complain about that. And the beautiful thing about Minecraft, or generally my motto when building is, if it doesn't look good, it's not done yet. And there is really some truth to that, because after all, that is a video game about blocks. So everything can be altered and changed. It is of course important during the build to always step back and look what you're doing, so you don't have to, you know, turn your entire base by 90 degrees or something like that. But rather to spot issues fairly soon. Because as soon as you spot something, the easier it is to rectify. But you can always change things, and especially if you're building at a smaller scale. Like I do most of the times. Small to medium scale. you can't just tear something down again and rebuild it. You know, don't be scared of that. And also don't be too nostalgic about it. I used to really hate it to get rid of old builds because they tell the story of the world, and to some degree that's true. You should be respectful of your old builds, but at the same time, you should do backups every once in a while anyway. So you can always come back to an older state of your world and see what's changed, and I think that's a very fascinating aspect too. So don't be scared of getting rid of old stuff when your plan is to replace it with something even better. Or upgrade stuff. You know, that's an option too. Sometimes it's small tweaks that can bring a meh base to an awesome base. Okay, I think that's far enough, maybe. Maybe let's change the shape a little bit. Because I'm not really feeling what I'm seeing. Should we? Yeah, I think the jungle should extend way further here. Okay. Then let's continue. Maybe we need to grab even more dirt. Maybe that's what we need to do. Because there's no way that will be enough. And I think that's something that Minecraft taught me, to take those small risks. And at the end of the day, there are small risks, you know, to end up with an ugly build. To just not be afraid to fail, ultimately. Because you will very quickly learn that even though sometimes you do fail, the times where you win are so much more important. Oh god, how did I land on here? And the more you try out and the more you fail, the more you will also win ultimately. Okay, this flight duration 1 rockets are more than enough for, you know, just getting around the island. Have I? Okay, I thought I did think for a minute I had forgotten about the dirt. Which I wouldn't have been surprised about. As me talking and building is always a kind of an interesting mix that tends to separate itself. You know, like butter and water. I'm looking forward to this build because it's supposed to be very... It's not supposed to be super alien from a Minecraft default jungle, but at the same time a lot more cluttered, a lot more detailed, without overdoing it. So that will be a challenge in its own right. Is it good? Maybe let's really have a division here. Have the dirt all the way. Yeah, I think that should do the trick. Are we happy with that? Maybe. I mean, we can always change it later. I probably will. But I think for now that's good. So the grass is spreading, and I think over here we might even leave it as it is, because that color works. Works out great. I mean, the transition is a bit rough, but I think for that type of build that will work out. The edge we still have to transform, of course, because that is definitely too blue for my liking. I shouldn't say for my liking, because I love greenish blues or bluish greens. They're really my definite favorite color. But not for this one. Not for this one. Guess we will spot many more things to do, many more blocks to convert. While we're building up the jungle, that's just how these things are. Oh, come on. But it's just so satisfying doing that, isn't it? Okay, that side is a bit awkward, but I don't think I will worry too much about that today. But we will rather come back to that once we attend the back of the island, which won't be today. Not in this long play, and also not in the episode of this time lapse is gonna go towards. Okay. Then I think it is time to actually... The issue about the grass is the color. So maybe we should get rid of all of it. And search for different foliage to be planted here. Not sure yet what that will be, but I'm pretty sure we'll figure out something. Yes, and I have not done that much preparation work beforehand, so... It will be interesting. I mean, you obviously have already seen what the finished product looks like, but I haven't. Well, then let's get the wood box out. Which is this one, of course. Well, I think for the majority of trees we will actually use the proper jungle equipment. We need our trash box. Because already our inventory is getting out of hand. Why is that box already full? Have I not emptied it out? Ugh. Yeah. But I think I will use mangrove leaves for all of the trees. Maybe. We'll have to see. The problem about mangrove wood is how difficult it is to come by. But actually I like that much more. Okay, we will go with the mangrove. Which will be a challenge. And we could also try to use both, of course. Maybe jungle for the bigger trees, mangrove for the smaller ones. Let's try to work with both. Shall we? Yeah, but let's maybe get an aerial view first. So we know what we are working with. It's not that big of a space, but I'm thankful about that. There's still too much grass around, but fine. Yeah. The bigger trees will be probably up the top, with more smaller and crowded ones down below. That's probably the idea. So, now comes the scary part. But let's just wing it. And hope for the best. And yes, I really don't have that much of an idea what I'm doing. But that's fine. Pretty sure that's fine. Okay. Now it's raining, of course. Something like that is at a good start. I think we can work with that. Getting some roofs in, you know? Unlike Minecraft trees, which are perfectly straight, we have it bowing out towards the ground, especially with an old tree. That is, of course, very common. And how about branches? I don't think for that type of tree. And it's gonna be more palm-like, so we will only have leaves on the tippity top. Not so much down below. For that we will have smaller foliage. And we will think about it in different layers, so to speak. And those trees are the top layer, of course. But that top layer will be a fairly small one. Okay. And then let's try to incorporate some leaves, some palm leaves, some very dramatic palm leaves. Which is an interesting concept. Thinking about it. Oh, why I am misplacing? Toni, that was embarrassing. That was really embarrassing. And I think another important lesson I've learned about building in Minecraft is that the key to any awesome build, it's not talent. It's not genius. It's patience. I know it sounds lame in a sense, because you probably heard that a lot of before, but it really is. Even the best build, I mean, of course, if you're very experienced with builds, and then in 5 minutes you can build up something that already looks good, while a building novice will very much struggle with that little time. But already here we have the point. As an experienced builder, you already put years into that, so you already were patient to get to the point. But even then you will need to be even more patient to build up great builds. And why I'm talking so much about patience? Because I am one that really doesn't have patience. Seriously, none of that. I mean, it depends. It depends on how motivated I am, of course. But especially when I started playing Minecraft, I love the game, I love the building aspect, but patience? You know, having the endurance for big builds? Nah, didn't happen. Because I didn't really trust myself. Of course, there's a motivation thing. If your builds don't tell a story, if they are not really from a lore aspect part of your world, as I've talked about in a video before. But also just trust into your own skills and abilities is a big thing. And of course, if you're just starting out, you might have that false trust in yourself, which gets very quickly destroyed. At least that's what I experienced. But then you kind of need to relearn it. And just go through that very difficult phase of being bad. Being bad at it. Building horrible things. And eventually you will get back that trust into yourself too. To some degree at least. I mean, the best builders will always be the worst critics of themselves, but in a way that keeps them going, keeps them improving. Every once in a while, you also just need to realize that what you're doing isn't actually that bad. You know, be your worst critic, but also be your biggest fan. Oh god, that looks horrible. Okay, I only can be critical about that. Gosh, what abomination of a palm leaf is that? But honestly, before I fix it, I will attempt to build another one and then we'll come back. I think that's probably the smartest attempt here. Yep, and something like that really crushes your trust into your own skills very, very efficiently. Let's phrase it like that. But you really need to kind of... Well... Also these leaves desaturate, which is a bit of an issue. Learn to cope with that. Learn to understand that this looks that horrible because I have spent no thought on that. It looks a little bit like Mickey Mouse turned into a tree. Or like a rabbit. A rabbit and a carrot merged into one. That's what that looks like. Okay, we don't even have that many mangrove leaves, I'm just realizing. Well, we'll do our best. We'll see how far we get. I still hope, or despite all that hope, that this video will still be relaxing and entertaining. Because I can already feel that I will not be that relaxed when I'm finished with that build. I mean, maybe once I'm finished I will be relaxed, but certainly not in the process, because that already... is not a relaxing thing to look at. Rather deeply unsettling. But I think I just went overboard with those leaves. Maybe they just should be way smaller and way pointier towards, you know, towards the sky. And then very droopy. Yeah, very elegantly. Where have you learned how to use an elytra? Yeah, not sure if that's really... if that's moving in the right direction, is it? And then we pull that forward a little bit more. That's where a happy gas would probably come in very handy, but as of the time of recording, we are still in the pre-release phase, so... no happy guests. There's some glow squids. Sorry, but that's important. No glow ink. People always... you know, one of the most common complaints about glow squids is that they are supposedly very useless. Which I couldn't disagree anymore. Of course, they are not a really flashy, I mean, they are actually flashy, literally. But they're of course not that big of a feature, you know? But really just a mob variant in a sense. But that's alright. Why can't I hit that thing? Even though some of the other mobs of that mob world would have been, you know, bigger in terms of gameplay, they would also have required a lot more work. While I'm pretty sure the glowing squid was pretty quick to do, so freed up resources for other things, but still is a... in my opinion, a very lovely feature. Something that it's just worthwhile to go out to look for. Now, once again, world building. It's also for the game very important. And sometimes that's enough if a mob has that feature. And unlike the polar bears, which really are just kind of ambient. Okay, there are two more. Has the glow squid actually the function of providing glow ink, which is an awesome addition to the game. So I'm very happy about them. And even though they can technically be found everywhere, they're not biome specific, it is still a thing you kind of have to look out for. So from that aspect, I just love glow inks. Glow inks, glow squids. Okay, that's enough glow ink hunting. How much do we have? 28. Awesome. Alright. Back to the build. Sorry about the distraction. Okay, from that angle... Gosh, Toni. Let's fix that. I don't have any sand now with me. Let's fix that later. From that angle, it almost looks a bit spooky. But already the leaf is too big again. Interesting. Apparently I just go overboard with those leaves. Then let's try that again. And this time hopefully a bit smaller. Now it's just so easy to just add stuff and hope that improves things. Which oftentimes it does, but not always. Not always. Can then already droop down. I think that's probably the way to go. Oh gosh, I just hope this turns out alright at the end of the day. Because we come back to trusting yourself, trusting the process, I don't have a lot of confidence when it comes to tree building. Because I barely have done that. You probably can tell. More so by how I'm acting than what it looks. Because, as we already have said, my philosophy when building, as long as it doesn't look good, it's not done. And I also think the happy ghast is in that aspect, like we've talked about the glow squid's a great addition, as it's something that's already home to... Put your guesses in the comments. To what cause will I die this long play? Is it drowning? Is it fall damage? Or something entirely different? But no cheating. Write your guesses down below now. Okay. Yeah. You know, ghasts have been a vital part of Minecraft for many, many years, so... having a friendly, tamed counterpart to that is kind of a stroke of genius. One thing, however, I'm absolutely not happy about is the texture for the equipped ghast, you know, with the goggles. That looks just... It is a professional texture, don't get me wrong about that. But it feels so cartoony. It feels like it's part of a texture pack. It just doesn't fit the more... I don't want to necessarily say serious, but the more neutral tone of Minecraft. And that is what makes Minecraft so great. That it doesn't impose anything up upon you. You know, it doesn't tell you you have to play that game in a specific way. You can treat Minecraft in a cartoony way. You can also treat it in a fairly serious or realistic way. And why such a thing gets enhanced by a fitting texture pack, already the default textures allow for a lot of different playstyles. And the happy ghast with its goggles just... It does not fit that philosophy. It's just way too cartoonish, way too bright. And should therefore not be the default texture. So maybe I will change it for my world, for my Let's Plays. I'm not sure yet. Maybe also I get rid of the goggles entirely because... You know, ghasts are flying around by nature. Why the heck would you give them goggles? Especially considering how slow they are. It just doesn't make sense. Thinking about it. And of course it's a game, it doesn't need to make sense. And I understand the gesture. I understand what... You know, the symbolic meaning behind those goggles. But I just no. It's... You know, when it comes to texturing, I think in my opinion they made everything right about the Kraken. Both the model as well as the texture. It's just a perfect Minecraft board. And play function wise, the Ghast I think is a great addition too, but the texture, nope. It's just a big no from me. But luckily we can change things like that. So that's the good news about that. Well, the good news for me, because at the end of the day, that's my opinion. Maybe you disagree with that. Let me know, by the way. What do you think of the Happy Ghast harness? Is it called that? I don't know. If you like it or if you don't like it, either. Alright. Does it look any better? Oh god. I just hate it. I hate this tree. Yeah, I think we'll add maybe another leaf somehow in the middle of those. We probably should bend that. Maybe we should bend that towards to the side and then have another one here. Or build another one first and then bend it to the... I don't know. Let's just... Let's talk and more building. But generally I'm very excited for this island, especially for the everything we will build on the beach. Not in this long play, but rather in the episode that follows it. So definitely subscribe if you want to see that. Maybe also with that forest we will have the opportunity for a bit of implicit storytelling. We will see. Okay, then let's bend this to this side. Also don't go overboard with its size. Maybe can add a few on top, or maybe just one, to give it a bit of a point. By the way, don't take any advice on tree building from me, because I'm the wrong person for that. I'm just a learner. Okay, let's see how that looks like. And I think if it's not completely horrible, I will just leave it for now. And maybe adjust it later on. Once we have more of the surroundings in place. I think that's honestly... I kinda have saved it. Now that is not that horrible. Vines would probably be useful. Even though I said I want to do the decoration at last, but... We only have one anyway. Why do we... Oh, that's a trash bag. I see. There are more vines here and even more there. Why are they in separate places? I don't know. But you know, just plant them and let them grow. Let them wander. And then we should plant a second tree. I think that will probably be the biggest of all of them. At least in terms of bulk. Maybe we'll have even a taller one, but a slimmer one. But first of all, we built another similar one next to it, but a bit smaller. Bit smaller. And that one will go fairly close next to it. So probably be around here. Maybe I think that would be a good opportunity because there isn't any moss block here. That we have that visible. Yeah, I love that. I love that very much. And can we already not climb up there, I think? Well, that's a shame. Okay, and maybe have that one leaning a little bit. Which will be a build challenge in its own right. But I'm up for a challenge. Building diagonal is also always the ultimate. How to say it? In a way it's a cheat, in a way it's also making your life just unnecessarily painful, you maybe could say. It certainly is a flex if you can pull it off. And what I'm doing here is certainly not being able to pull it off, but rather horrible things. Horrible things. Okay, how should we... Uh-huh. 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 That will be now a very crooked tree. But I'm fine with that. I mean, that was the intention to begin with. Okay, how does that look? Yeah, I think we can work with that. Maybe just give it a bit of a neck, because that looks a bit awkward. Yep, I think that works. Maybe we could also add in... Yep. Yep, fine. Approved. And when it comes to trusting yourself, I guess that is also something that I have to learn in terms of creating content. The main reason I have been, I haven't been streaming a lot lately is just because I still don't have big enough of an audience, though it really makes sense to stream. Because really a live stream lives from comments and viewer interaction. If you don't have that, then what's the point of streaming? Then you can just make a long play, like what I'm doing right now, where you at least have a little bit of the editing power. So you can cut out awkward moments, awkward silence, or bathroom breaks. And you don't have to record everything at once, which is also kind of a relief. But both with long plays as well as with streaming, and to some extent even with regular short form videos, not short, half an hour let's plays. I'm always kind of nervous pressing the record button because I always think, am I in the right mood? Am I in the right position to be entertaining, to say the things that I want to say? Especially considering I'm still fairly new to the whole YouTube thing. I'm not I don't have a lot of experience. And I'm also, as you probably are aware of, I'm not a native speaker, which doesn't make it any easier for me. But then again, I have to, accept two things. That first of all, I have shown in the past that I can make good content. No point comparing myself with full-time streamers who have been doing that for many years. Nope. No point doing that. But in my own right, I think I have been doing awesome content. And also, and I think that is probably something you could write or should write on a post-it and put it on your screen or wherever you will see it. People don't do things because they're good at it. They are good at it because they're doing it. If I'm not just jump into the cold water and start recording, I will never be good at it because that doesn't happen by not doing it. It just happens by practicing it and by allowing yourself to be cringy, to do bad stuff. You really have to learn to be comfortable with that, because then you're also in a space where you can improve, where you can grow. And if I'm looking back to my very first video, which by the way you can still find, it is unlisted, but if you search for the finale episode, the one where I think finale and world tour is written on the thumbnail. It should be one of the oldest ones on my channel that's still listed. There in the description I have linked the playlist of my first Let's Play series, the first season of Elven Let's Play, if you want to call it that way. And you can scroll back to my very first episode, which I think for one's first episode is fair, but It's not good, obviously. I wouldn't recommend watching it unless you're really just interested to see how I improved. And that's the point. I'm pretty sure that I have improved a lot since then. My presentation skills back then were just... well, I mean, you know how people's first videos sound like. I don't have to explain that to you. And I have learned a lot in that regard, so... and I have done that by just making bad content. By seeing what went good, what did not went that good, and what I can improve upon. And I just have to continue doing that. And if I continue doing that, then I will improve even further. It's easy as that. And, you know, while... the thing with YouTube views is that it's not really a good measurement of how good your video is, because that's not what a view count is measuring, but rather how engaging it is, how useful it is. That's a whole different topic, but let's phrase it that way. The approach of my Let's Plays was always fairly similar. It has changed, of course, and evolved, but my regular Let's Play episodes are still regular Let's Play episodes, they always have been. And that seeing that the second season has generally a lot more views than the first one, and people, I see it in the analytics. The reason for that is that just people, they stick around. They not just click away after a few seconds, most of them, or some of them, fewer of them than before. So there I clearly also see the improvement. But I further have to do that scary thing of climbing Cringe Mountain, how they call that, before I can get to the land of the cool. What am I even doing? And I mean that in more than one sense, in terms of building as well as in terms of what I'm talking about. I mean, I know what I'm talking about. It's always a question, should I talk about that? Or should I just pretend to be already a big YouTuber? Because that's also one thing I've learned. If you want to grow on YouTube, you have to treat it as you're a professional YouTuber. You still have to be aware that if you're not a professional YouTuber and you don't earn money with that, there's only so much you can do, but you have to take it seriously nonetheless. Because if you don't, then, well, it will show, and it will also show in how much content you're putting out there and what kind of content you're putting out there. So there's always a question, should one even be that kind of vulnerable and talk about their journey? I don't know, that's a good thing, but I just like to do it, so I guess that's my approach to that. After all, I'm also just a human being. An elven being, I wanted to say. Okay, are we getting anywhere? Maybe. Oh, it all looks odd. Maybe... well, maybe let's complete all 4 leaves and then go into the air again. But in that regard, I think that recording Minecraft Let's Plays, even if you don't aspire to become a YouTuber or streamer or whatever it is, even though it is very scary if you're just starting out with it, and the results will always be just at the beginning horrible because just how very competitive this niche on YouTube is. But apart from that, it is a great way of improving your presentation skills, which is something that is useful for everyday life, of course. Because how much people respect you, a lot of it depends on how you can present yourself, which it shouldn't be that way in an ideal world, you know? In an ideal world, only what somebody says and what they are doing, you know, their actions and morals should count, but we don't live in that ideal world. Okay, that is way too short. And how one presents itself is more often than not the most important thing people look at. So, that way, it's even for the good people important to know how to present themselves. And to learn that is really jump into the water and record a let's play. And continue doing so until you find yourself in a situation where you can just press on the button and start presenting. It's a wonderful thing. I mean, I'm still very shy in the real world. That has not changed. Probably will never change. But nonetheless, I realize that certain things have changed. I'm not quite as scared anymore, you know, in social situations. Or in maybe even scary situations where the social situations are not your friends or peers. But also around friends, I noticed that I think I'm a little bit more fun, in a way. That sounds maybe odd, but it has become easier for me to, you know, engage in a conversation where I'm not originally part of it. You know, having a conversation with four eyes between two people is one thing, but being in a group of people and just bringing yourself into that conversation is... I always struggled with. I still do, but in a way, streaming and recording has made that easier for me. Because you're just constantly in the situation where you're forced to, I don't know, say something. Find something to say. And that really rewires your brain in a certain way. Maybe not rewires, a bit drastic, but gives you exercise to, you know, come up with interesting things to say. Which comes natural to some people, or more natural to some people than to others, but I'm certainly not one of them. Is that... Why do I not have any moss anymore? Fine. Fine! I'm not complaining. Okay, are we happy? Okay, you can see I've attempted the leaves a little bit different. They go up and down, they just droop down, and I don't like it. I don't like it. That's the only way I can express it. I don't like it. I think we already... Oh dear. Oh god. That could have killed me. From the top it looks rather cute actually. But not so much from down below. But maybe that's easier to fix than I think it is. Maybe just actually have to add leaves and not even remove any. Which would make it more expensive, but easier. Do I still have... Yes, but I don't have any bark blocks. To this day, I will not accept that they are called wood blocks. Because that doesn't make any sense. Are we happy with that now? I guess we're happy with that for now. Okay. That's a good start. Then let's bring in some mangrove trees. Maybe let's start on the complete opposite end. Just for testing purposes, so to speak. And I only have 51 mangrove. What on earth was I thinking about that? I probably have to cut eventually, which will be beautiful for the time lapse, not at all. To go more mangrove harvesting, as we don't have to do that in the long play. Even though it's a long play, you don't have to see me harvesting mangrove trees, because that is painful to do and probably even more painful to watch, I can only imagine. So, you're welcome. Is that what I want? I don't know if that's what I want. Honestly, I don't know what I want. Maybe that. How did... That's certainly not what I want. I know that much. Uh-huh, and if we thin up the neck a little bit... think that's better? Maybe? I'm not entirely sure about that. Maybe we should do it rather like that and change it from underneath. Now paying attention of how the texture flows. But it makes somehow sense. We could, of course, that would be the easy part, or the obvious way, use mangrove leaves, but we could also use different leaves. Like jungle. Just switch it around. That sounds good to me. You're probably scratching your head, but that's fine. I'm used to that. I'm used to people being confused about what I'm doing. Ooh. Well, nope. Okay. Over there, the leaf colors still work, but nope. Yep. You know what we need to do. My favorite leaves. Which we... Seriously now? Do we not have any azalea leaves? Is that what the... I don't believe that. Surely we must have azalea leaves. Or have I really used all of them up? Let's see. Don't really need the flowering ones. Well, 49. It's a start. I think it actually looks pretty decent from above, so I'm happy about that. Yep, then we have the bright color we need and want. Beautiful. But I will have to harvest more of them. There's just no way around that. Doesn't matter how much I don't like it. It's just how it goes. And yes, I'm realizing that it gets dark quite quickly. I'm going to bed. And in between, for this night and the next day, I will harvest a lot more resources. And as we already have talked about colors. If you're not a content creator yourself, you might have never really thought about that or noticed that, but maybe you have, and you certainly have if you're especially a YouTuber, that pretty much every Let's Player who plays Minecraft heavily saturates their thumbnails. Because if you just take a screenshot in that game and put that on a thumbnail, it just looks so incredibly dull and boring. Which had me wonder if just the texture in Minecraft are, you know, dull and boring, if that's just what that is, but... You know, looking around us... I mean, the brightness is up to the max, but otherwise, these are the vanilla textures. I haven't changed anything. And they look alright, don't they? In fact, if they would be as bright as on your typical Let's Player's thumbnail, I think it would be horrendous. But it kind of makes sense, as you're of course here surrounded by the world, and if everything would be jumping at you and screaming, that would be a bit much. But a thumbnail, on the other hand, is exactly supposed to do that. So also I saturate my thumbnails quite a bit, for the very same reason, so that you even notice them. And they look just so much better. But it really is an odd thing, as what works with thumbnails would probably not work in-game. At least not for vanilla Let's Play. I mean, there are always specific cases where you can get away with pretty much everything. But it would be pretty much like a... I guess a sugar rush diabetes situation. If the game textures would be so heavily saturated. Even the old plastic texture pack doesn't have that kind of saturation, I don't think. Then again, it must be years since I last used it. Okay, what am I doing? For some reason it all looks weird what I'm doing. But I guess we're getting somewhere, right? Please don't crush my dreams. Why am I making such a mess out of everything? Okay, let's see. Is that... I would say it's a start. Yeah, I think that would be a fair word. It's a start. Gosh, this will be a long play. Even though maybe eventually I will just cut and show you the finished result. You know, talking about bright textures, that moss already looks very bright in-game. Of course, less the tiger, which is toned down, which is supposed to be, but still. That is very bright, but wouldn't look like that on a thumbnail. Of course, scaling is another issue. A thumbnail is very small, while, you know, you usually play on the whole of your screen. And that heavily messes with how we perceive colors. How large the area actually is that is painted in them. Let's just hope that makes sense now. I mean, both what I'm saying as well as what I'm doing. And if both at the same time would make sense. That would be almost a miracle. Yeah, honestly, I can live with that. Then let's also do the other ones at the back. And then plant more of them. If I only could plant them and bone meal them. Yeah. I'm pretty sure there's a mod somewhere that does something like that. I mean, there has to be, right? But come on, Toni. It's not like you have an infinite amount of iron, right? Because I don't like iron farms. Just the whole concept of them, I don't like it. You know, it's not that I have an issue with farming in general. I mean, especially in this world, I do it quite a lot. You know, your standard mob farms, your farms, and all that stuff. But the problem I have with iron farms is that you're really enslaving a good creature that is only has ever done good things to you, unless you attack it, of course. As well as enclose villagers, you know, in jailing them. Even though thinking about that, that is what we all do all the time and what also have done to Frank. But it's different, you know? With a villager trading hall, you still have open access to them, you can talk to them, and they are happy enough. But in an iron farm, it's just a dark and spooky enclosure, and the golems just fall to their death. That just doesn't feel humane, elven something. It's just wrong. And I mean, obviously it's just a video game, but I don't like it in the terms of lore of your world. Because every farm you kind of have to justify in the context of lore. I mean, you don't have to, but I like to justify them in the context of lore. So there's nothing wrong with a kelp farm. I use that stuff quite a lot for smelting, so I need it, so I built a farm for that. Fine, but with an iron golem farm, I mean, I need iron, you know, there's that aspect. But really, in terms of lore, it only makes sense if I'm the villain. And surely you wouldn't think that elf is a villain, right? Nah, can't be. Not me. And that is why I always struggle on iron. Because to this day I have not even once found an iron vein. I found plenty of copper veins, but iron? Nope. Okay, that is mangrove wood. Yes. I have a singular piece in my inventory of that, which is not quite enough. So I feel like we need another one directly at the water. And maybe even bendier than the first one. So it really leans into the pond. Not directly into it, but encloses the area a little bit. Do I have any more? Yes. 4. Brilliant. Guess it's better than none. Okay, that's already... What was that? That's already the doll. How tall is that? Okay, one more should be fine. You would think you can jump that, but no, of course you can't. How do we do that? Once again, no paying attention to the direction of the logs. Should we also switch that one? Probably. Might be a bit more consistent. Because you want to have texture, but you don't want it to just be a mess. And that is a mess right now. That is very much a mess currently. Okay, fix it. Don't think I have a clue of what I'm doing, because I really don't. Okay, we need to... Yes, that one needs to go. Yeah, I think that could work. Then one more at the tippity top. And then that should be good. And then we start over with the spiel of the leaves. I'm just not a big fan of building trees. Here you have it. Just that. They're just so awkward. Because I'm more keen to building, you know, things with a very definite shape. Or more structural or technical thing. Mangrove, azalea. We could also mix in mangrove. No. We want to have it azalea because of the color. And I was thinking of putting maybe some flowering azaleas in here, but I don't think I will do that. Maybe on the ground, but not in the trees. That will make it too messy. And it really is often not that easy of a compromise to find what is the right amount of details and what is too much, because it's so easy to just add more. And especially easy to think, well, if it doesn't look good, maybe it doesn't need more details. And often that's actually the case. Often a build doesn't look good because it's simply too bland, but it's not always the case. Often enough, it's the shape that's wrong. And sometimes it's even too many details. Alright, but at that point, I guess because I will still be here quite a while figuring out the palm trees, I will just cut until we have all the palm trees in place, and then figure out the small details. Only a flick of a moment for you, but what felt like an eternity for me. And the palm trees are done. I've also added a third big one, as that really was needed in this place, and a couple of small ones around. Of course, the vines still have to grow, so that's one thing that's not yet done. But otherwise, it's finally time for the small ground shrubbery. I don't know how it's called. But here we go, full azalea fashion with regular oak logs and even some flowering leaves, I think would fit in well. Excuse me, was that a wandering trader again? I don't know, there are so many of these guys coming by. Maybe I'm just starting to hear things. Wouldn't be surprised. Yeah, just like that. Maybe not that many flowering ones. And cover the ground. I mean, it's quite similar to regular Minecraft jungle, just with different materials. And that is quite on purpose. You know, world building, we're still in Minecraft, so it's totally fine with being not too different from what you would expect to see. However, unlike a Minecraft jungle, I want to have it still somewhat traversable, So we have to find a good compromise here. Of not too much, but also not too little. And I've also added some roots. Or more roots for the small trees, including those thingies. What are they actually called? Roots. Perfect. And seeing as we have grass over here, maybe that would also be a good place. You see my inventory is full of junk we might need. To place a few carpets here. You know, roughen it up a little bit. Okay, but especially on the edge I think we want those smaller foliages. Is that a word? Probably not. It's fine. You know, hanging off the edge. Taken away from that rough looking terrain. Smoothing it out without actually smoothing it out. But it will seem a lot more natural that way. Maybe also attach it to the tree. A little bit fungus-like. Why not? No, I'm not a botanist. I have no idea about any of these things. I just go with what feels right. Okay, maybe one more here. And that in the middle might remain a little bit more open. You know that there's somewhere where one can actually walk. Maybe just a small one over there to enclose it a little bit more, but not too much more. Because it already gets kinda crowded in here. Maybe... No, I want to leave that open. Actually, I think we're good. Maybe down here? On the coastline? Oh yes, that looks very barren so far. Can't have that. That all is certainly an interesting exercise for me, as that is something I really have never done really before in that game. So much flora forming, you could say. It's a fascinating aspect of Minecraft, really. Which is, to this day, even though we have many different kinds of leaves and kinds of textures, still kind of limited, as there are not really many, you know, small blocks. Really, when we want to have trees that are only full blocks or fences. Thinking about, we might want to have some smaller trees built with fences. But I feel like using fences is always kind of just... It's not ideal. But then again, it kind of is a charm of building a Minecraft, is for most things there aren't really any ideal solutions. You just have to work with what you have. Okay, good. But speaking of fences, what material would there be? Probably oak. So we have a contrasting light color for those presumably very young plants. Do we have any fences? I think the answer is no. But we have tons of sticks, so that's good. Why do I have no crafting table? I mean, there's one, but can I? Oh, I can reach it from here. Perfect. And yeah, I'm just realizing I have forgotten to turn the music off. But it's too late now. I guess we have vanilla Minecraft music for once. Okay, give me my fences back. And what kind of leaves would we want for that? I guess we have to go with azalea. Due to the color. Or I guess actual jungle leaves would work. No, because that's a beach. Yeah, but they still kind of work, because they have the bright spots in them. I guess that's what we are going with. Where are my fences? Where are my... Am I going mad? Where are my fences gone? Oh, there they are. Yes, I am going mad. Alright. With that question out of the way, let's plant some more trees, and these should be fairly easy and quick, right? Just really basic. Like that. Maybe they don't all have just that basic, but you get the idea. Maybe the next one can be a little bit curvy. Kinda refuse to get out of the scaffolding for this, but I guess they're not that small after all. I mean, that is 4 meters, and a tree with 4 meters in real life is also kind of a small tree, but still kind of impressive for a human being, I suppose. You know, not for an elven being, but for a human being. It looks a bit weird, but guess I'm fine with that. Yeah. That one's a bit weird. Just like me, I suppose. I guess sometimes you just have to try out things. And let them grow on you. Because often it's difficult to evaluate something in the moment, if you like it or not. It's only when you come back to it later on that you really see what works and what doesn't. And for me, by the way, with this Minecraft world, slowly but surely comes the point where I have to think about what we still need, what we still want in this world, as it will not go on forever. It's not my forever world. Don't have a forever world at the moment. And it is time for me to wrap it up, because I have new ideas in terms of YouTube series, and you know, it's difficult to get the audience hyped about an, by this point, old series. And it's sometimes also a bit difficult to get myself about it hyped. Even though it will be sad to see this world go, especially because of all the farms I built, which, you know, only now really pay off. But I guess that's what that is. Maybe the next world will not be quite as farm heavy. Actually, to give you a little bit of a preview or spoiler of what my next world will be. With this one, I really gone big for what I'm used to do in terms of Minecraft builds. The next one will be quite the opposite. It will be much smaller, much more, you know, really one episode, one build type of thing. And all builds should end up with something coherent and big in the end. But all at a fairly small scale. And it all is supposed to have more, you know, cozy vibes. Not stressing ourselves, but just go one step after the other. I think that will be a nice change. Nice change of pace. And I was thinking of maybe having 2 worlds parallel, so we could still work on this one, maybe just in streams or long plays. But I don't think this really is gonna work. At least not in the context of content creation. It would work if I just do it for myself. I don't know. If you desperately want to see this world continue, you know, on a longer term, then let me know. Because it is something I can do, I'm just not so sure if I want to do that. But it's not over yet. So don't worry, there are still a couple of things I need to do. First of all, of course, finishing this episode for which this long play, or this build long play is for, which has been in the work for a month at that point, which is very sad. But that's just how it is. That's not my job. It's just my hobby at that point. So there's only so much time I can spend on it. But I keep coming back, and I hope that's enough for you to also keep coming back. Maybe. to my channel. I mean, I don't blame you if not. As a creator, you realize that if you take a longer break, and I mean not, I don't talk about a month, but really a longer break for a couple of months, that the audience you had for a Let's Play is just eventually just gone, because it's not necessarily that those people are generally gone from my channel. I guess they will come back if I do a video that's interesting to them, but that Let's Play series, which I have maybe paused for a couple of months, the energy is just gone. Nobody or barely anyone is interested in that. They would much rather watch a brand new series. And I guess that makes sense, because as a viewer myself, I'm not that different, so I can't blame you guys. And I don't. I really don't. At the end of the day, that would be the worst, or that is the worst thing a YouTuber or content creator can do. Even though it happens quite a lot, especially with small channels, that they're kind of blaming the audience, that the audience doesn't know what it wants, and not necessarily doesn't know what it wants, because sometimes the audience doesn't know what it wants until it sees what it wants. That is a thing. But that the audience is bad at choosing. And that just gets a little bit underneath my skin. Of course, a successful YouTube video is not necessarily one that is of a high quality. Because, entertainment and usefulness and quality they are overlapping but not identical. But at the end of the day, you can't blame the audience. If they're just not into your stuff, then that's just that. You have to accept that. It's kind of coming up with a product that no one needs and then blaming the people because they're not buying it because obviously they don't know what's good. No, that's not how that works. But many small channels do that. Not all of them, but many do. Or some do. It's not that many. Because most small channels, from what I'm seeing, just don't really care. They do it just for fun. But some can be quite aggressive about that. And that really is the wrong approach. If you think YouTube about that way, that it's just either the algorithm or the audience is evil and doesn't like you, then you will never have success. Because you're really manipulating yourself. Okay, we need more jungle leaves. Why do I not have enough jungle leaves? That is annoying. Maybe let's see if I have more in storage. And of course, that's a general concern with Minecraft content. If you see how many videos I have on this channel, not even considering the unlisted ones, the early ones, which, weren't that great. The number of subscribers I have is abysmal. Jungle leaves. But one thing one has to keep, maybe also some cherry leaves. One thing you have to keep in mind with Minecraft content, that kind of the videos I do, sure, there's my unique personality and my take on it, but there's a lot of different content already out there, and especially with a Let's Play where it's not about... most people that don't watch a Let's Play because they want to see somebody building exactly this kind of build. That might be the reason why you click on a new video, but generally you just want to have a good time. And then you're not really risk-taking and don't really watch a video of somebody you don't know, but rather of one you already know, where you can trust that you will get exactly what you want out of this video. So it's kind of difficult to get the attention of new people with Let's Play content. But at the same time, once you have that attention, it is fairly easy for those people to stick around. Because then that what makes it so difficult to grow as a Let's Player then plays in your favor. Because those people already know you, they already trust you with their time and come back. Okay, but I have now completely derailed this topic of this Let's Play. When we, now talk about YouTube rather than building. But I guess that's fine. I would assume if you're still watching this video at that point, you probably don't mind either way. Okay, how do I get out of this mess here now? Have we now enough small trees? Maybe I guess get rid of those final 5 fences. Gosh, what is this terrain over here? It's a mess. That's what that is. Okay, we have enough small trees on this end. Uh-huh. Maybe somewhere in between here? Yeah, sure. And I guess if we still continue with being a YouTuber, the most important thing is... Ah, now it turns into a rainforest, I see. To just have fun and enjoy what you do. Of course, if you want to grow on YouTube, you have to approach it professionally, like a job. But you still need to make sure that you kind of enjoy the process. And with enjoying, I don't mean like just playing a video game, because creating content is always kind of a different thing. It's always... It is work, it is exhausting. It's not just like starting up a game and playing. But there's a difference if something is just, you know, takes energy, if it's exhausting, or if you're dreading to do it. Of course it takes me energy to do a Let's Play. There's a lot of editing, a lot of planning, a lot of building, a lot of doing. But just have an hour of video. But it is quite of a fulfilling process with the end result and just seeing how it comes together. Looking for the right music to put in it. And then I'm very much willing to take the time and don't mind too much if a video just absolutely flops. Because I still love to watch it back. Oh yeah, you can't put them on leaves. That is still something to this day I don't understand. Why you can't put glow lichen on leaves, that really should be possible. And why has this tree no leaves? Why have I forgotten about that one? How did that happen? You know, in this biome, those jungle leaves, it almost look like there are small fruits growing on them. Which is very lovely. And we still have to think about maybe something for coconuts. It's all about the small details. Good. And I was thinking about cactus flowers. They might... I don't know, they kind of make sense in here. Even though I just have 2. And I don't think you can bone meal them. Let's get a bit of bone meal nonetheless, because I'm totally out. Hello? Here we go. And you know, it's not like I actually have a shortage of bone meal, it's just like... Gosh, don't trample that. I have to access it. That's easy. Just have to go past our skeleton farm, through this headache tunnel, but it just looks lovely. So I guess... You know, functionality or beauty. And we just take a stack of bone blocks. And we can look, there's one more cactus flower. If we have any over there. Oh yes. There is one. But I don't have... Oh yes, I do. I do. Ouch. And I guess we also harvest them while we're at it. I almost made it. Oh yeah, the jungle is coming together. It certainly is. And I want those flowers more in the central area. Okay, and let's test that. No, you can't bone meal them. Okay, some glow lichen for a bit of eerie feels. Maybe those more towards the waterline. But you can bone meal that stuff. Unfortunately, that stuff doesn't grow on its own. So we don't have to worry about it too much getting out of hand. Okay, maybe let's go a little bit softer down here. Yeah, sure. Maybe not even here. Just one. And I was thinking about drip leaf. Because they're kind of an exotic plant. Even though they don't make too much sense in here, they make sense in my mind, and that is all that matters, you know. And we maybe can arrange them in a bit of a parkour-like... Hello? Why? Why are you not? Here we go. That's already a very impossible parkour, I'm just realizing, because you have to take a sharp turn. But you can start from here. Yeah, that makes it easier. At least a little bit. And then you can jump up to there. Oh yes. Awesome, and then you can climb all the way up here and be up in the trees. Lovely. Yeah, I love that. I really do. Guess we have one here, and maybe that's even enough. Yeah, that's enough drip leaves. And then let's put a small one. Maybe another one because we are rich. Yep. Awesome. And I was thinking about resin clumps. Because they kinda look like fruit. Like oranges, and they do make sense. Not sure, maybe even on the small ones. Not on the small ones, because they already have their peers. That's what they look like to me. So maybe... But we don't really have anything fruit tree looking like. Maybe we use something completely different and add it as little bushes. You know, maybe dark oak? And... Oh yes! I love that! Very contrasty. But that is perfect. I think that adds a little bit of interest. Kind of a lot, actually. To the otherwise, you know, not that diverse color palette here. Okay, inventory is a problem. It very much is a problem. Let's get maybe rid of that bone meal. Okay, do I have everything? No, I don't. So maybe one more orange bush. I know oranges don't grow on bushes, but I don't care. They do here. Good. And then I was thinking about putting those saplings around, because they obviously won't grow, but give more foliage on the bottom layer, so that's exactly what we want. Yeah. And I'm not too sure about leaf litter because, you know, palm trees, they work a bit different, but we might still want to have a little bit around. Just as a different layer of texturing. But don't go ham on them. Because I am in the acute danger here of over-texturing. As you may be realizing, I'm doing a lot. But then again, it's a jungle, it's supposed to be messy. So I guess we'll have to see and continue. Okay, I run out now and we don't have anything over here. That is not good. So maybe let's get rid of some of the leaves here. And relocate them to over there. Because it's so easy to just plump stuff down. Without thinking what you're actually doing. Do we have more leaf litter? Because at that point we might need a little bit more. Mangrove leaves we have the most of, so we can burn those. But do we have anything to burn them with? Okay, inventory. Issue. Inventory, very much an issue. How much do we need? One block should be enough, right? I have no idea. I can't Minecraft. Yes, of course. I have no idea how much fuel you need for one leaf. To be burned. To be smelted. I don't know how you would call that. Guess we'll find... That, I guess, is not compatible, right? No. Do we have normal furnaces here anywhere? Not there, not... maybe in those houses? Surely there got to be a... Yes, beautiful. Then let's turn them just into regular coal. Because a full block might be too much. Is it one? It goes down... Yeah, that might be actually more than 8 leaves per coal. I don't know. I don't care. We'll just let that smelt. Let that do its thing. I was thinking about cherry bushes. But that might... No, that doesn't work. That is too much. But we can put down azaleas. A few of them anyway. I don't want to overdo them. Yeah, why not? In this crevice. Works. And a handful of flowering ones, but really... Those I want to use sparsely, as we already have the flowering leaves. So... Maybe one more here. And then for some boulders. Yes, but maybe we need a stone cutter for that. Which I should have somewhere. And my inventory will not get any better by that. Good. Let's see, because I also don't want to make them too obnoxious. It's not gonna be big boulders like you would found in the Mega Tiger, but rather some smaller ones. With a bit of shape, like that, and I guess that really roughens up the ground a little bit, gives it more interest. Yeah, that's good. Maybe especially on the coastline. Nope, not the small one here. They almost look like it's kind of a sunken structure. I don't know if that's the law of that place. Of these actually being remnants of some old builds. Maybe they are. It could make sense. I guess I'll leave that up to you. If they are remnants of old structures, or just rocks. Let's cut also them down. And that is something I love about Minecraft, that even though there's so much Minecraft lore, the game really doesn't push anything upon you, but rather suggests things. And I think that's also a powerful thing you can do in your own Minecraft world or Let's Play. You don't have to explain everything. Sometimes things are just there. And the audience need to make, their own sense of it. Or just accept them as being there. You don't have to explain everything. Or don't need an explanation for everything. Okay, I think that's already enough. Don't want to overdo it. Maybe something small over there. Yeah. Sure. And the rest gets sorted. Maybe something in the sand. Yeah. Maybe something here. Yeah, I know I said I don't want to overdo it, but... then you're in the mood and then it just happens. Okay. Where is my... Here. Even says it's on the tin. Anything we could use for decorating here. I don't really think so. We could hide a more pet. Maybe could hide a drowned head. And encourage some storytelling. Here on some of those rock pebbles, there will be a drowned head. Maybe here. No, maybe not here. Maybe also not there. I don't want it on the side. Yeah, I'm picky, I know. No, I don't want it there. Maybe just get rid of this head. Yes, I'm happy with that. And let's have this just somewhere randomly. Guess that works. And with that, I guess the jungle is done. One thing that still needs to happen is for the vines to grow. I mean, they have started doing that. Or maybe I just need to put down a few more. Maybe we should do that. I was getting that excited that the video is done, but nope, we still have more work to do. At least a little bit. Okay, more vines are needed. Guess especially from this side it's kinda empty. Kinda sad looking. Which we cannot have. Yeah, but many really still have it, just not yet grown, so... I guess that's enough. And one final thing I want to do is, because the sea life here is pretty much not existent, to bone meal the coast a little bit. Just as a minimal aqua forming. Just pass along that way. Oh, hi buddy. Do you want me to give me your head? Because I don't have any more in my storage. Oh. I guess that was a no. Alright. That looks so much better already. And with that, I guess, the jungle is done. Some of the vines, of course, still have to grow, and maybe I will string some others so they don't get too much out of hand. But otherwise, it's pretty much how I envision it to be. If you still have some other ideas of what we could put down here. And there's also some of the new foliage, which from the update I'm currently playing on with it, which is 1.21.4, pre-gastlings, gasts, whatever. That update is out yet, but I have not updated yet. I guess an hour early in this video I told you that this update was not yet out, but it is by now. But you already have in 0.4 some new, you know, firefly bushes and stuff like that, which I don't have access to it yet, so that is something we could add in. But if you have any other ideas, please feel free to give me those ideas, because when you see this video, at least if you see it early on, I'm very much still in the process of recording the full episode of, you know, building all the things on the beach behind those buildings, which are the main focal point of that episode. You know, all the jungle is just backdrop more, kind of a thing. But I can come back in here during that episode and add little things. So leave me all of your ideas and maybe I can and will incorporate them. Otherwise, I hope you had a good time. Thank you so much for joining me. If you want more of that type of content, then let me know. Leave a like or subscribe, because how well a video resonates with the audience is a direct sign for me to do more or less of it. But with that being said, regular Let's Play episodes will come back. So with that, take care, stay awesome, and see you soon. Bye!